Yo, 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 yo! Welcome to the MoxStars podcast, everybody. I am one of your hosts, Jordan Garcia. I am joined by two of my esteemed colleagues and good friends, Evan Kunai.
What it do?
Christopher Ritter. We're not going back. We're not going back.
He's here.
Straight through. Christopher Ritter.
I thought better of what I was going to go.
All right, guys, our main topic today is going to be another deck workshop. These fun little deck techs that we pitch to the table. We kind of do some feedback. We kind of do a little deep dive on some of the deck builders' processes, especially after we've gotten some play testing with it. Really cool stuff. We're doing Evan's Zacama list right before we go to this tourney. Last week we talked about my Malcolm list. Really stoked about it. Before we get into it, though, we got a little intro topic I would love to discuss with you. Ritter actually pitched it right before we started recording here. Very interesting topic. House rules.
Before we get into that, you can find us on TikTok, Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
All of our social media things. You can find those in the description.
Linktree down below, baby.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Send us money. We don't have a Patreon. Just send us money.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you could track us down.
Yeah.
My passwords aren't that secure.
We make sandwiches.
Okay. Well, moving on to our intro topic that I just jumped the gun. I was so eager to talk about it. House
Hey, did we
rules.
mention our socials? I'm kidding.
I think we did. I think we did. Yeah. Run it back one more time. House rules, guys. Ritter brought this up. Do you want to kind of talk about how this kind of came up? I think it's a really interesting topic.
Yeah. So I was browsing Reddit, and pretty much every day on Reddit, you will see someone posting about a experience playing Magic the Gathering that I'm not really familiar with because I have played in kind of like big city environments, thankfully, where we have a diverse array of gaming shops to attend and find play groups of any power level. But if you're stuck in a smaller town with less options or in a smaller city, again, with less options, and you have, you're stuck with the play group that you have, apparently you get stuck with some bullshit house rules playing this game.
I've never considered this before.
I've seen it a few times on Reddit, and it's it is pretty common that the story pops up, banning just certain lines of strategy, things that in our environment, and now when we go out, there's tons of people. We show up at Commander Night every week, and there's 40 to 50 people playing. And now if we had a house rules list, that would exclude so many people. You actually would have a much smaller gathering if there were house rules.
Kind of the polar opposite of this format conceptually, but
yeah. So inclusion and casual and whatnot. And so I've seen some lists that are absolutely insane.
You see, the common things you see are banning infinite combos, limiting storm, limiting the use of certain stacks pieces or counterspell pieces or types of interaction. There's a lot of different lines that you can go down in terms of house rules. A lot of it does seem to come, though, just the owner of the shop or, the predominant pod that plays there, just the things they don't like. The things they don't like losing
so
to.
Arbitrary.
It doesn't seem geared necessarily towards a better play environment for everyone, but a preferred play environment for the people in charge of making the house rules.
right.
Yeah, it really does make you commit. You're sitting at the table, and the reason for infinite loops and refined strategies is that the people at the table aren't sitting there for hours and hours on end just stuck in this slog of a beat down in a commander game.
Yeah, we've learned that we like that. We like a deck that can win the game.
Yeah, we like a deck that can win the game fairly out of nowhere. It just kind of ends the game. We all look at each other, shuffle up, and keep it going. But with a set of house rules that says no infinite combos, nothing like that, they're basically saying you're committed to 3 hours at least.
Yeah, Ritter's saying
you're going to spend a bunch of money while you're here.
Yeah, you were saying Storm can't go past 1 was one of the house rules you saw, which is insane to me. You can't even value play a thing, and not even you're winning or anything like that.
What I don't know how the decks that do get played, how they intend to close out games. Is it just you have to go
win
wide?
with an 8/8.
It's all they want just combat based.
Yeah.
I'm
playing,
guessing
as Richard Garfield intended.
Right.
But
I'm guessing Sprouting Vines just exploded in one game, and they were just none of that.
I mean, it's literally a lot of the, you see people playing out their trauma in real life and at the Magic table, and it's just this happened to me once. I never want to experience it again. It felt bad to lose.
Winter Lord banned.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
well, we're not going to sit in our play group and ban mana barbs, even though we've seen it in Gears and Karn a few times.
No, we're just going to knock Jordan out of the game.
This is how you play Magic.
Yeah. Just it just seems like crazy to me that like there aren't even small lists. The thing is, when a house rules, when a set of house rules becomes established, the list may start small, but it's going to grow rapidly, and it just exponentially grows the more the game grows.
Because it's arbitrary. It doesn't follow a linear set of circumstances that you can be like, well, if this is this, then this is this. It's just, I don't like these things. I don't like losing these things. I'm a big baby. Change my diapers. Whatever.
It also makes like those play groups and like those stores and everything feel way more insular, like way harder from an outsider perspective to come in and kind of find a new game, a new pod and stuff like that. It's like
Arguably, the point of Commander is social.
Yeah.
Like there's the competitive thing. Even at the competitive level, the core of it is social. It's a 4-player
100%.
game. You're going to hang out for a while. You're going to meet some new people, interact with some new people, and hopefully, if you're the type of person that likes to grow and change, get some new experiences that may involve you losing the game.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, like in competitive Commander, I think it's way more social still compared to like a competitive 1v1 situation.
I prefer to lose in a learning environment than win by pub stomping.
100%.
You know?
You didn't get anything out of that. What's the fun in that?
Can you just imagine bringing a friend from out of town? Like they're visiting and they're saying, "Hey, let's go out and play some Magic." "Oh yeah, I'll show you my LGS." Like we'll go there. I have a great time every single week, and you show up as just like this new person. You catch eyes from across the room, and then they're like, "You can't play that card." What do you mean? It's not even banned. No, you just can't play that card. Check the house rules.
Yeah.
And then you instantly feel alienated, and then people are just like staring at you, breathing down your neck. Like it's. I feel like
bad
it's,
vibes.
yeah, it's
Feels
bad vibes. Real feel bad situation.
Yeah, I am not a fan of house rules. Can you guys think of any house rules that would be like
Rules?
entertaining?
I mean, I would say, this is more of a Dungeons and Dragons thing, but it applies to Magic. The rule of cool. Anything that makes the game more fun, makes it more cool, makes the whatever aspects you're enjoying about the experience better. Like, rule zeroing a non-legendary commander can be a commander just because this creature should be legendary or just has a cool build-around effect that you want in the command zone. Like,
still a thing better discussed at the table than
exactly.
as like a set preset rules.
But I'm saying just things that will expand the experience rather than limiting the experience.
Correct. Yeah. I feel you.
It was pretty cool back. I mean, before lockdown, like 2019, I remember going over to Mox Boarding House here in Seattle and checking out like Commander Night there. And I was like, "Oh, do you guys do Commander Night on other nights?" And they're like, "Well, we do it on Tuesdays and we do it on Thursdays." And I was like, "Oh, snap, I'll stop by and play on Thursday then too." And I showed up and I just pulled out like a normal deck and I sat down, and then they went, "Oh, we actually don't play like full budget decks on Thursdays. We only play 2 EDH, which is like a $50 limit on your deck. Every card has to be $2 or less according to Card Kingdom, and they have their own like house set of rules." Now, had I like known about that, I love that like creative deck building like thing. And if it's a known commodity and you're like creating a format around the deck building process to like have a set of house rules around, I'm all for it.
Because that evens the playing field. That
It
doesn't
does, yes.
doesn't get rid of certain strategies. It doesn't say you can't play this type of deck. It just says anyone with access to $50 worth of cards can play tonight instead of having to sit down with a $2,000 deck.
Right.
Yeah, and I sat down and they're just like, "You can just go pick up a precon. Just go get a precon. Come on back and like sit down and play." And that's exactly what I did. I can't remember what time, like what era that was around. 2018. It might have been just right around the release of 2019. Those decks. So I think I bought the Dockside deck, and my deck was immediately over the $50 limit. So they were all pretty chilled. I wasn't like trying to break the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a terrible deck, so
Yeah,
it's
it
not
was
like
awful.
you're getting away with doing anything. All right, I think that was a great intro topic, and house rules suck. Don't do them. Talk to your table and discuss from there.
Just stop it. If you are an LGS listening to this, or you go to an LGS that has house rules, like, I don't know, sign a petition or something. It just sucks for everybody involved.
Play online or find a better LGS.
Yeah.
There
Like,
you go.
I know sometimes there's not options
Yeah.
in terms of like finding a physical LGS and you prefer that experience, but
Discord,
I mean,
baby.
go in Discord, go on
Discord.
Spell Table, just
We get so many games online.
yeah,
There are a lot.
just jam
happening.
games with people that share the experience that you want to have in the game.
Yeah. If you guys have different perspectives, different opinions, put them down below. I'd love to hear if you or what's some like crazy rules that you've seen at game stores that you also think are ridiculous.
Or if you've seen some rules that really expand the fun you can have playing Commander, what are the fun house rules?
Also
I'm
the
interested
upside.
to hear what you have.
Sell me on it. All right, well, let's get to the main topic. Evan, we're doing a workshop on Zacama.
Yee-hoo! Time to get on my soapbox, guys. Let's do it.
Can we run that back with a little more energy?
Actually,
I
we're
feel
starting
like
the whole episode.
It's not going to pop.
Yee-hoo!
I didn't want you to actually do it.
All right. We're in it. We're talking about Zacama today. And this is a deck that I babied like from like 2018. I built this like crazy Naya like big mana nonsense deck, and it was just like
Is that the version that you have on Call Me Commander?
it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
go check out that
So
episode.
search that out. You can get a different perspective on this deck.
Good job.
later on.
Oddly
Yeah.
sexual, so be prepared. It's
On brand.
Yes, it's very uncomfortable, but it's a fun deck to play. Like if you're playing casually, Zacama is just this great outlet in the command zone, and when you're throwing mana doublers in there for everybody at the table, kind of creating this group hug type thing, it's always in your favor, obviously. But it's been a fun deck to just like refine and build, and it's always been a threat. I think if you see Zacama in the command zone, you immediately think
Threatening.
there's going to be like some sort of like infinite loop or combo line or something like that. But it wasn't that for a long time. It was just creating a ton of mana so I could untap my lands, activate those abilities, and cast a lot bigger creatures like Aurelia and just big, real big stuff.
Nyx Bloom Ancient.
Yeah, Nyx Bloom Ancient. I had a competitive build for a long time that was focused around Nyx Bloom Ancient. But this set, and that was the deck I actually took to Marchesa too, was the Nyx Bloom Ancient variant, playing a lot of heavy stacks. But this updated deck, this is the one I'm taking to a tournament in Olympia, Washington in about 2 weeks' time.
Much leaner.
Much leaner. I think I've learned my lesson and just started refining and cutting away the fat. I think that's been a big point in growth as a player, is like knowing what to cut away, what is a fun card, what is an efficient line, what is not helping me get to my win conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So this build is I would say hyper refined, and it focuses around food chain, because I don't know why I didn't think about that before. I've always had this, like, when I built the stacks variant, I focused heavily on enchantments because that's how I was building my mana base. I wanted to focus on killing off artifacts because I'd played against Jordan for so long that I had sort of like, I don't know, assumed that I was going to run into Grixis nonsense or a lot of like decks that were going to abuse like the most expensive cards in the game, like a Mox Diamond or Mana Crypt or Mana Vault. Like those artifact ramp pieces were what I was dreading the most. So I built a stacks heavy deck around like Stony Silence and Collector Oof and creature based stuff. But then I also put in like lands that had more value to them. So like Gaia's Cradle and Serra Sanctum to benefit from the amount of stacks I'm putting out, generate more mana, so my lands mean more, and that way I can cast Zacama. When it hits the board, I control the field. But that variant of the deck, I just kept tripping over my own feet and like getting in my own way, like putting evolution lines in the deck so I could get Nyx Bloom Ancient out and eventually go infinite.
It was known as the non-bow deck for a few weeks to months.
Just ironing out the details, just running into non-bow after non-bow.
It was pretty funny.
It was
just
like
you wouldn't see it until it was like on the stack. You're like, oh,
it's like, I'll cast you Sharn. I'll cast you Sharn.
You were an effective stacks deck against your own deck.
it's true.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was. It was like trying to, like we talked about in one of our previous episodes, we talked about stacks and how it props up unconventional strategies to like, you have to be able to thread the needle. You have to be able to create a stacksy environment that isn't going to like slow you down at all. And this whole deck was just general stacks. So it didn't really
stopped everything.
Yeah, it stopped everything, including myself.
So you took a pivot and you pivoted, you said, to a food chain line because Zacama allows you to filter all of that mana into your land mana.
Yeah, once we talked about
fantastic.
food chain, it wasn't until Rocco released in New Capenna that I realized,
that's right.
I realized that like this could be a food chain deck.
Because you took a second. You took like a week or two and were like, all right, I'm going to play Rocco instead of Zacama because it seems like kind of the obvious upgrade.
Yeah.
And then food chain made sense, like almost too much sense in Rocco.
Yeah. And I took that deck home with me. Like when I first built Rocco, and I had already played at Marchesa, my pod back home in Wisconsin, we had played a couple rounds together. And the Rocco deck, let me tell you, there's a reason why it sits at the final table a lot, because it is a 2-card combo machine. It just filters out like whatever you need, and it finds what piece you need, and it goes for the kill. I played it a few times and just won on turn 2 like 3 or 4 times, and then I was just like, this is really good.
That's
and
pretty
then
good.
yeah,
Well, I will say that Rocco, you can just, any Naya deck, you can just slot that in as the commander and just be like, well,
It's good.
Yeah, it's good now. Yeah.
Any combo lines you might have that are creature based, Rocco is.
I mean, I do think he might be the best.
Oh yeah,
Naya commander.
It is better than Zacama.
But his function for you personally was like opening your eyes to what the deck can be.
Yeah, my third eye opened when I realized that I could use Food Chain on Zacama.
It's funny that you just switch the commander, add food chain, and then you switch the commander right back.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh,
It's like,
no,
oh,
sorry.
it is a pretty efficient line. I wonder if it works with Zacama. It does. Hey, spoiler alert, it does, because Zacama acts as this prism. When you're like shooting light through a prism and it expands into all these colors, like that's what Zacama is doing. You're taking all of that food chain mana that you're generating infinitely with Squee, and now you're taking it and you're infinitely casting Zacama. And as long as your lands can generate one of each color, so like red, green, and white, you can now have infinite mana that is not restricted to just casting creature spells.
So, and you know, how this actually plays out is most of the time you're going to land Zacama, generate infinite mana, and then, you know, use the red ability to deal 3 damage to target creature, clear the board of creatures, use the green ability to destroy target artifact or enchantment, clear your opponent's board of artifacts and enchantments, and the line you typically don't pursue because you don't need it at that point is to use the white effect to gain infinite life.
It's funny that one actually carries more importance. Like, I'm actually looking at it like I just want to put the Grand Abolisher out and then gain infinite life and draw my whole fucking library with War Room. So like generate infinite life. So that I can
War
just,
Room is
like,
a great outlet there.
Yeah, so there are a few lands in this. So like when you think about like how important are the lands, Zacama cares heavily about the lands. And so Food Chain can generate that infinite mana for me to like cast Zacama and bounce these lands and untap them infinitely. Like what kind of like land package can I run that's just going to help me win the game? And
Right.
War Room just like screams out, because you just like cast Zacama a bunch, you gain infinite life, and then it doesn't matter how much you pay. It just keeps untapping, and you keep drawing cards until you hit Blind Obedience, and then you just cast Zacama infinitely using the extra mana to extort everyone to death.
Well, notably, Zacama, while really good and does work with Food Chain, does still not win you the game. So you still need that third piece, that outlet, and that's what you're talking about. Great. It is great. Like, even if you don't have it, cast Zacama with infinite mana and just nuke the board.
If you get to the point of infinite mana,
You're fine.
yeah, you're fine.
Fine.
Yeah.
Just choose
does-
choose how you want to end the game at
Yeah.
that point.
Right,
Like,
Zacama essentially reads, destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control.
Gain infinite life, and then I'll just swing with a 9/9 worst case scenario. But yeah, now you are playing all these lands that give you these awesome little outlets. War Room, like you said, like infinitely untapping it,
Yeah.
paying the
Bonder's
life, gaining
Enclave.
the life. Yeah, Bonder's Enclave. Den of the Bugbear is my favorite. It's so cool. I had no idea until you told me about that.
Yeah, so Den of the Bugbear is definitely like the win condition I'm still waiting to achieve, because it is like so nasty, because it just says pay 3 in a red, and then Den of the Bugbear becomes a creature that has, whenever it attacks, it creates a goblin. Let me just get like the accurate text here.
Until end of turn, Den of the Bugbear becomes a 3/2 red goblin creature with, whenever this creature attacks, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. It's still land.
Yeah, so thank you. You can feed infinite mana into Den of the Bugbear, and then that creature, that goblin, gains infinite instances of, when it attacks, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. And so when you finally declare it as an attacker, you're going to create infinite 1/1 red goblin creature tokens and just point them all at every other player.
I can't wait to bounce that land back to your hand before you
Yeah,
attack.
that's
amazing.
why I'm hoping that I can just draw my whole freaking library and then
You'll
put
still
out
have Zacama with infinite mana.
But yeah, put out the Grand Abolisher or something. And
Yeah.
you know, like there's a lot of, I mean, that's the biggest issue I ran into at Marchesa, was that even though the deck tripped over its own feet a lot, there were times when I had the opportunity to win the game. It's just that this deck loses on the stack. So you have to have the right cards in your hand at the right time in order to like really establish any sort of victory.
You want that Grand Abolisher to do work in this deck.
Yeah,
It does.
I mean,
Yes.
I almost feel like if you're saying, you know, this deck dies on the stack, you also need Docent of the Falling Leaf in there at that point.
I've thought about it. Like I've thought about putting it in
Have a
there.
little redundancy.
Yeah, it's just it's such a hard trigger to pull because it's not just one-sided like Abolisher is. Like Docent just basically, if I'm not able to win the game when I play Docent, then it allows somebody else to win the game. So I don't
True.
have the ability to like interact with them beyond a certain point of like activating abilities. In which case, if I've cast Zacama and I've destroyed all non-land permanents and I have Docent on the field, I'm kind of just welcoming the defeat. Like I really just kind of open my arms and say, "Beat me."
Yeah, like in my head, if I'm going after you playing my Malcolm deck and I see that come down, my plan is, all right, burn the interaction I have now. So it stops you from winning that turn after that resolves. You have to pass the turn, and then I win with protection.
Yeah. I mean, we just saw it this last week. We played on the Play to Win server, and we went into a game, and like plenty of people were excited to like see Zacama in this like at this high like power level. And a few people asked for the list, but at the end of the day, when it came down to winning the game, I lost to a mana drain. It was just not having, like, Jordan tried to force a will Zacama when I hardcast it just for value, and I had to use my Red Elemental Blast. I should have just let him force a will it, because after that Red Ele Blast resolved, the guy mana drained me, and then went into his next turn and ISO revved for the win. And it, like... It was just so sad to see.
Zacama's a juicy target for a mana drain.
Because he went into his upkeep and he's like, I'm going to cast an Enlightened Tutor. And I had an Esper Sentinel. And I was like, are you going to pay for that? And he's like, no, you can have a card. You gave me 9 mana. You can have the card. And I was like,
it's a fair exchange.
Yeah, that is fair. And two, at that level, you know, the thing that you ran into is if you're prepared to win and you don't win right there, everyone else knows now, okay, it's my turn to win.
Yeah.
I have to go now.
Yep. It does scream that. Like, if you're able to like interact at that certain point and just say like, if he gets this untapped trigger, then he probably wins. So I'm just gonna like stick my finger in there and stop it.
Your giant dinosaur 9/9 infinite mana is not subtle.
Right.
It is not a subtle.
No, it's very stomp. So, I mean, but like, so I've included cards in the deck to like help with that, you know, static pieces. I think we talked as far as like stacks pieces go, you definitely want to be, threading the needle here. So like Allosaurus Shepherd just kind of protects that, but you know, it is fragile in its own right. But you know, like a lot of people aren't playing widespread creature removal, and so I can build this like valuable board that's just kind of allowing me to go off and kind of holding other people back.
That is one thing I like seeing this deck in action is that you do build a board state on your way to your combo.
Yes. Yeah. So I would say that generally my best matchups are mid-range decks that also want to get to the mid-game, because I'm pretty confident that whatever value they're establishing on their board, I can dismantle that, or I can like at least establish something, because when people look at this, the only place they really know to like stick their finger in is to stop Zacama. And there's a lot of other like outlets in the deck to catch people by surprise.
It's a very interactive deck.
Yeah.
You know,
And
and you know, you need that because you're not faster than any other combo deck, but you know, you're more interactive.
Right. Yeah. I'm definitely focused heavily on removal, which is why like Docent of the Fallen Leaf doesn't necessarily gain a slot here, is because I've had to like include a lot of tutors, refinement. Like you have to be able to like boil everything down to getting the lands you need. So like that's why I'm playing Elvish Reclaimer. I'm playing Weathered Wayfarer because their abilities allow me to highlight the most important part of what Zacama cares about, which is the quality of your land. So if I can use like Elvish Reclaimer to sacrifice, I don't know, just like a duel for a Guy's Cradle, like I'm fine with that. Like that's something that like I'm totally worth doing, because I'm generating I'm positively generating mana by getting a land that's going to tap for like 3 or 4. And like same with like Sarah's Sanctum. While there are still a ton of enchantment creatures in this deck, like I'm playing Destiny Spinner, Sanctum Weaver.
You have almost
Eidolon
20
Heretic.
enchantments. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's 21 or 22. Yeah. So that's including a lot of my ramp. So when I'm focused on that and using that to like generate mana and using like the land filtering so that I can like get that, I'm also playing Sylvan Scrying. It's like these colors don't have a lot of tutors, if I'm being honest. Like, you have very specific tutors. You can play Gamble, and that's great for going to get Squee, because it doesn't matter where Squee goes after you tutor it. You can play Enlightened Tutor. You can go get an enchantment, like something like Food Chain, and like set that on top of your library, but then you're telegraphing your moves. Crop Rotation. I'm pretty sure that every green deck that's playing at a high level should be playing Crop Rotation.
Yeah, you have several cards on top of that care about lands. You're running land tax. You're running what was the other one? Burgeoning. Yeah, you're running Crop Rotation. So you're talking about getting like those like high quality lands on top of that.
Yeah. Yep. So
definitely have a land package in here.
Yeah, it's interesting. You have a land package, an enchantment package. Like you have various packages on the way to your ultimate goal.
Yeah, it's definitely a house of cards. Like everything that I've thought about for this deck matters, and maybe the one thing that doesn't matter the most is probably the artifacts, because if you look at the artifact, it's just very basic good stuff.
You're playing the 6 mandatory rocks at this level.
Yes, I am.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not playing like Mox Diamond to like discard a land, even though my land count is a lot higher than a lot of these decks that are sitting at this power level.
Yeah,
too.
you got 32 lands in there, where most of these decks you're going to be, I don't know, 27 and 29.
I would say I do think that Mox Diamond is better than Crow Mox in this slot, even though you like lands better.
Well, it's funny that I'm just kind of like testing it out, and I don't know if it's like flavorful or if it's just like, but I can actually exile Squee or Eternal Scourge with
Chrome Mox.
With the Chrome Mox. So I can tap for a red while Squee is just sitting underneath it, and that's like a very like
it's cute.
It's very cute and it's very circumstantial, but it's happened.
You'll do it sometime.
It'll happen sometimes.
It'll happen at some point.
You know, if I exile the Eternal Scourge, the thing is it doesn't tap for a colorless; it taps for nothing.
Yeah.
So it just becomes a dead rock on the field.
I mean,
for 0.
Yeah, not trying to convince you away from Chrome Mox. If anything, I think you could just fit a Mox Diamond on top of it if you could find a slot in your list. My thought being, with such a high land count, that the odds of you having an opening turn Mox Diamond with at least 2 lands is really good, allowing you to get that second color pip on turn 1 instead of waiting till turn 2.
That's true. I mean, it allows for a turn 1 Draneth to like slow the board down, or allows for a turn 1 Abolisher. Or
to me, it feels like a second 5-color land drop on turn 1, like pretty much every time I play.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the tournament we're going to is non-proxy.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's an expensive card.
Yeah, it's an expensive card.
There's like a $750 difference between the 2 cards we're talking about.
Yes. So one day when I just flip and turn my collection, now that Wizards doesn't care about printing fake cards, I'll just flip all my real cards and go for the big stuff. But
Getting political.
Well, it's just my game plan.
So
I mean, it's EDH.
Yeah, it's whatever. I have one real deck that I can take to tournaments that's super high power.
Yeah, we'll have a whole episode about proxies. Actually, we should have that.
Yeah,
we have a lot to talk about there. So you're talking about dancing around your stacks, or having stacks that kind of like doesn't slow you down. So what are your key pieces? What are you targeting? What are you making sure you get out early? You have in your opening hand. What allows you to like go off?
Ooh.
Notably, let me chime in right before you go. The thing I love about Food Chain combo is with stacks is that you can just exile the creatures that are staxing out the board, and then the turn you're planning on winning.
Yeah, either like when a starting hand like comes around, I'm looking for 3 to 4 mana to like in the first turn or 2, and then like a stacks piece that's going to allow me to slow the board down, either an Eidolon of Rhetoric or Archon of Maria being the best, or I'm looking for card advantage like a Ragavan or an Esper Sentinel. I don't think I've kept a hand with like an Elvish Reclaimer like as the first, even if I have a fetch in hand. I don't see it like being like that opening hand.
It's not a great turn 1.
Yeah, it's not a great turn 1, but I'll keep like a tutor or something like that with let's say like 2 or 3 mana available. There was just like you run test hands, like when you're trying to play competitively, you run hundreds of test hands just through Moxfield or just playing games. But there have been a couple times where I've just like turned 2 to the Devoted Druid and hit it with a Swift reconfiguration for infinite green mana, and it's been pretty sweet. So like I'm looking for those things. Like it happens more often than you'd think, and it's not as circumstantial. But yeah, that's what I'm looking for, and I guess Elvish Spirit Guide or something like that.
All right. Well, this is a workshop, so we're pitching cards, we're asking you questions and stuff like that. So I said that your deck could probably benefit from having a Mox Diamond in here, and yes, we're talking about you can't have proxies for this tournament.
I know what card you're attacking right now.
I think it's a direct upgrade to this, 100%. I have no idea why you're still playing Nature's Lore in this deck. You used to play it when it was a casual deck, and this is the one card that has remained the same.
I have
That is a pet card for you.
I have the secret layer copy. Get off my back.
But yeah, if that was a Mox Diamond, and then you just get to discard like your third land in hand.
That's actually a pretty fair point. I could probably get rid of Nature's Lore for a Mox Diamond.
Yeah, and your curve is just, it gets so much better. It lets you cast that Sylvan Scrying turn 1. Like, it just turns on a lot for you.
Yeah, it just Mox Diamond doesn't untap when Zacama hits the field.
No, I know, but I feel like the lands have become less and less pertinent once you switched over to Food Chain. You still need them.
I'm still playing.
You still need them, but
yeah, you're
it's not
right.
as much.
You're right. I'm still like playing. I'm still playing a high number of lands, so like it does make sense to like take out the Nature's Lore for a food or for the Mox Diamond because it essentially is the same thing, just far more efficient and far faster. So I probably like in the future when I'm looking to like upgrade this deck, trade in and upgrade for that's what I would do. Yeah. Also in just a little side note, like this deck isn't just like hyper refined and focused to like accomplishing Food Chain Squee or Scourge or whatever. I'm also playing Heliod because it's an enchantment creature and kind of like pushes forward that game plan with generating mana. And then I also have Walking Ballista in there. So I have that option, especially with Food Chain. Walking Ballista just is the game.
Actually, that brings me to a point. You have Shared Summons in this deck, which is a 5-mana tutor. Lets you look for 2 creature cards with different names. Is that... well, I have a question about tech. Why is this in this deck over something like Sylvan Tutor that you can play at 1 and grab 1 creature? Is the additional 4 mana just so you can grab Squeen Eternal Scourge at the same time, grab Ballista Heliod at the same time? Is that the thinking there?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It's like it's in there for the instant speed interaction so that I can like dance on the stack like too. It's like something that this deck sorely misses. I oftentimes just can't like wait for my turn to come around to like be doing things so that I can hold up mana. Now it does make me immediately regret not running Endurance because if I'm playing that and I'm like instant speed, like
and you can get the card to pitch it if you
exactly.
need it. Ooh,
yeah,
that's
so
pretty good.
It is like a 5 mana Endurance that I could potentially squeak in there. That
yeah,
seems like
yeah.
a pretty
I
good
mean,
line.
that's pretty good. I do think we've talked how kind of underrated that card is. It's like an instant speed tutor for 2 creatures, which is really good. You do run multiple A+B combos that are all creature based, so that is also a good argument for it. I also like the fact that a lot of the time you'll probably have an A or a B piece without the alternative, and then if that's the case, then you cast Shared Summons, getting an Allosaurus Shepherd or a Grand Abolisher, and then you get the other piece.
Yeah,
and then you just resolve one after the other and just win the game.
Yeah.
So it gives you a lot of that flexibility, and like it almost gives you that kind of intuition effect in blue.
Right.
But you get to play as Sans Blue.
Yeah, I mean this deck relies on when you're not like that's why I had to like squeak more tutors in there is because the deck otherwise would just be running on luck.
Mm-hmm.
So
I teed you up for this next card so you could talk about it.
Sure.
For this intuition concept.
Ooh.
I know you want to talk about it.
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah, hit me with it.
Okay.
What is it?
All
What's
right.
the card, Jordan?
I thought you'd like to educate the people. The card is ecological.
Oh, stop. The card is ecological.
The card is ecological appreciation.
Guys, shut up. The card is ecological appreciation.
Guys, have you heard of this card called ecological appreciation? It's X tuna green for the sorcery that I told Evan about multiple weeks before he put in his deck, and now he claims that it's his card.
No, so he told me about it and how it was like popping up in more lists, and then I immediately went on Card Kingdom and saw that they were $5 borderless foils.
Just bought them all.
And I bought them all.
So it says, search your library and graveyard, love to see that, for up to 4 creature cards with different names that each have mana value X or less and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards, shuffle those cards into your library, and put the rest onto the battlefield. Then you exile ecological appreciation.
Yeah, I absolutely love this in here, and it definitely found a home because it allows me to create, intuition style stacks at a certain amount of mana. So my highest mana value is 4, and there's only 1 creature that has that, and it's Academy Rector. So oftentimes I'm not really pushing it to 4 unless I have infinite mana, in which case I'm going to create a stack that you are going to give me exactly what I want. But even at 1 mana, if X is 1, the value on this is just crazy because then I can search for Esper Sentinel, Ragavan, a Birds of Paradise, or even that Elvish Reclaimer that's going to help me tutor for the lands that I need to win the game.
One of the best plays you can make in Magic is forcing your opponent to make a bad choice.
Yes.
And this card does it.
Yep.
You know,
It's really good.
it's all. I mean, it's a pure win for you, and it's a pure loss for your opponent.
Yeah.
That's Candyland right there.
Yeah, and even if you pump it up to 2, then you start looking at some really good lines.
Oh my god, it's scary. Like Destiny Spinner, Devoted Druid, Drannith Magistrate, Dockside. That's 4 2-drops right there. Like which 2 do you get?
Yeah, and then
Grand Abolisher, not
Sanctum
even done.
Weaver.
Sanctum Weaver.
So you can sort of like play out and bait people. So if you're looking at this, like, and you're, I guess, sitting across the table from this deck, and someone fires, and I fire this off at X's 2, and I put a Devoted Druid, a Grand Abolisher, a Dockside, and a Drannith.
You can also you can get 2 and below, right? So you could also you could do like Allosaurus Shepherd, Esper Sentinel, Drannith, Devoted Druid, knowing you have like a Swift Recon in hand or something.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. You're just threatening
terrible options.
Yeah, you're threatening that so that they don't pick the Devoted Druid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it just...
You're like, okay, but it's going to be awful for you anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So you basically, you can feign out these like combo lines that people are just going to have to walk into, giving you the value on the other side. So yeah, if you can bait out like a Devoted Druid, and then somehow get the Dockside to like enter the battlefield after that.
Yeah, make them defend against the wrong play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you go up to 3, and then all of a sudden you're looking at setting up some really tasty like food chain lines, because then you can pull Squee out of the deck, you can pull Eternal Scourge out of the deck, and now the downside of Ecological Appreciation is that that whatever they don't choose gets shuffled back into the library, and so it's possible to like lose those options. So you have to create situations where they're going to give you one or both of those options, and that's ultimately why I love this card. Even if you take it to 4, you pull the Academy Rector, that's probably going to be one of them. And
4 and below, so you should get... I think you cap out at 4, right? So it's just the 4 cards you want out of the deck.
Exactly.
So and then pay 7 mana and give them, bad options.
Yep, create choices that are not in any way in their favor.
Love the idea of grabbing a Ranger Captain out of there, because that's essentially 2 bodies for 1, and then you can go get like an Esper Sentinel or your Elvish Reclaimer.
Yep, I think when I go for 3, like if I'm going for 3 or above, that's like I think Ranger Captain of Eos is just one of the automatic choices.
It's the 2 for 1 body with the silence effect that is just so powerful.
Yep,
you're just holding a gun at the table.
Yeah, it just says like, well, one of you is not winning the game this turn.
Well, yeah, it says nobody is going to win the game if you try to win until I untap, and if I get to untap, then I'm going to win the game.
Yeah.
So it goes from such a oppressively defensive card to an oppressively offensive card in the flip of a turn. I think it's an awesome card, and it gives you a freaking 1-drop on top of it.
Yep. So you can actually go get that Esper Sentinel and just kind of just keep generating that card value.
Yeah.
And that kind of leans right into the next point, is that this deck has a lot of trouble with luck, and so you have to pump in enough card draw. And that's why I'm like, really only have like one wheel in here. It's Wheel of Fortune, because you can also play into your enchantment Infinite Loops with Underworld Breach, Lion's Eye Diamond, and Wheel of Fortune. So you can just end up wheeling the whole table and then winning the game that way too. That's an option there too. I just wanted to like point that out, that even though my mana base is built around enchantments, it's like that's why I'm also playing Urza Saga, because Urza Saga actually contributes to the Serra Sanctum mana as well, and the Sanctum Weaver mana. So
do you think it's a problem for you in this deck that you're maybe trying to do too many things, and that you lose your focus on card draw and gas that could be there if you dropped out one of the elements?
It's true. Like I think there've been a lot of suggestions that have tried to like take me off the trail a little bit, and just like suggesting general good stuff, like Naya good stuff, like, oh, you could be playing Blood Pod Sans Black, like Rocco, you can just play like that, the Kiki Jiki lines. And that was not really in my interest, because I definitely wanted this deck to feel like it was very much my own. Like, this is a journey. This is me pioneering a strategy that has potential. Like, I hate to say like, oh, if it had gotten to me, I would have won. But it happens a lot with this deck, and I feel like I'm almost there. So
you're like Mishra, like uncovering that tech.
Yeah, there's
digging for it.
There's just a couple slots that like it depends on what comes out. It's like the game is constantly moving forward, and so like there are just a couple cards that could be contributing to this strategy that help it like take the next step forward.
Well, in that case, then what do you think are like the 3 weakest cards that are just like, you need a slightly better version of this and the deck can go off?
One, honestly, I would probably say it's like Shared Summons if I'm not running Endurance, because Court of Calling is just infinitely better. You know,
Well,
like,
that's already in the deck, though.
yeah. And so like redundancy is great. Shared summons doesn't necessarily get me everything I need if I'm not running endurance. Nature's Lore, I think we already talked about, like running the Mox Diamond, and then man, it's really hard after that because I've like thought a million times about taking Sylvan Scrying out, but I need the tutors for lands. Like I need the very specific, like being able to like go get something. Land tax is potentially a weak card here.
Land tax is great early in the game, but you're not going to get a ton of value out of it, especially with your land package. You don't have enough basics to make great use of it.
I am playing 6 basics now. So like
basics a little bit, yeah.
because I bumped up the basics because I don't have the dual lands, like the real dual lands for this. And like the land tax on turn 1 to go into like a burgeoning, even if a land tax comes in later and I have one of the two options that's like trying to like create mana off of the number of enchantments I control, then it just becomes another like source of mana.
Okay.
Which is kind of like what I've been sitting on in the back of my head. I don't know if that's good enough, if it's fast enough. You know, if there's another 1-drop white enchantment that comes out in the future that like does something similar to Deafening Silence, you know, that like creates another loop for like, or another hoop for my opponents to jump through, then I'm definitely going to like run that stacks piece.
Authoritative consoles.
Yeah, because land tax isn't necessarily a stacks piece. It is just a card advantage piece that puts non-essential cards from my deck into my hand. It does like filter, and I'm not going to pick those cards up anymore. But it, you know, the
effect is so-so.
Yeah, the effect is so-so.
I think this deck looks really good. I think like I've seen it in every iteration, and this is such a lean, mean profile here. But I think there's still room to, you know, like I think we need to play test. I think we haven't really tested a ton at this with this list yet. And I want to see like kind of what looks good and like what feels bad. Part of me is thinking like maybe you don't even need an Underworld Breach win. Like maybe you just put in like added redundancies for the other things you're targeting, and that might do it for you.
Yeah, to me, Underworld Breach in this list looks like just win more. It's just like an additional thing you could be doing, whereas you could really be probably better served just doubling down on your actual game plan.
Yeah, there's been a couple times, like a couple of suggestions where people have said I could play Sabine's Reclamation instead, and that's what Underworld Breach essentially does for me. Is it allows me to recycle cards that are in my graveyard, because that's another weakness that this style of deck has, is that it just doesn't have the colors for grave recursion. So if something is used, or if I need to reuse,
I mean, green has great grave recursion pieces.
Oh, you're putting them back in my hand.
Yeah. I mean, if you care about lands, get that Balaged Recovery in there.
You got
something which is kind of like a free space.
Yeah, you have Noxious Survival in the deck.
Yeah.
Noxious Survival's in there just because it does stop like loops and shit too.
Well, if that's the argument, then I would say maybe consider putting Endurance in the deck. Then it justifies your shared summons we were just talking about. I think that'd be good.
I mean, that Endurance over Underworld Breach even is just a strict upgrade right there.
And also, I will say, I think Sabine's Reclamation is probably better than Underworld Breach if you're not targeting that win condition and you just like are talking about recursion.
Underworld Breach is good as a combo piece. It's I don't think it's good outside of combos.
I think it can be used as a value piece more frequently than it is, because people are always like, I need to win with this. And it sometimes can just be like a Yawgmoth's Will kind of effect for the turn, whatever. But
I feel like, you know, in that's in a deck where you want to be breaching for other reasons.
100%.
That's your backup plan.
Yeah, and like
I wouldn't include Underworld Breach in a deck list as purely for its backup plan.
Yeah,
like
you're not ripping through rituals.
As a backup plan.
Like you don't have like by the time you're casting it, like how many cards you can have in your graveyard to exile. Like my Grixis deck just like fucking rips through cards. So it's just like I have all these cards to exile.
Yeah, I mean, I never really take a hand that has Underworld Breach in it first. There've been times where I just like cringe a little bit when I pick it up on like turn 2 or turn 3, like on my card draw, and I'm just going like, oh, it's a little too early for this, you know. And then it's just like, well, then it's either hopefully I'm drawing something that's gonna like make use of it later on. I don't want to be in that position, but when it's good, it is too good.
It's almost the way that I would play like Doomsday, where it's just like, I'll try this again.
Yeah.
So I'm just you know, shuffling that back into the library whenever I see it in my first hand. Which, you know, if it comes down to like an important mulligan, it sucks. You know, it's just I'm going down cards because, you know, I'm running into it. But the power that it has for potential is really too great, which is why I haven't like slotted it out yet.
I'm just looking at like what a Savine's Reclamation can grab you though, and like
It does. It grabs a lot.
Any of your creatures,
you can get your
any of your
Heliod,
enchantments.
You can get your Heliod
Yeah.
plus a if you do the flashback Heliod plus a Destiny Spinner. If you have your Walking Ballista, that way you have an uncounterable win condition.
It sets up combos like you can. So if you do Savine's Reclamation and you copy it, with the flashback ability, you get the Devoted Druid and you get the Swift Recon.
I mean,
like,
food chain's 3 CMC. I don't know how that doesn't convince you. Like if you get countered and then you just food chain again.
Also,
You get every permanent except for Academy Rector.
yeah,
basically.
but then also Underworld Breach also gets food chain back.
Yeah, but you have to have 3 cards to exile, and you have to spend the extra 3 mana. So
Yeah,
you
if
have
I'm
5 mana.
if I'm that late in the game though, I'm pretty sure I would have like, it's not always a guarantee, but
all right,
guys.
Yeah.
Evan just likes this card.
He wants.
I
he
like
wants-
this
Staying
card.
at 99.
He just bought an
Yeah.
LED and he wants to justify it.
no, I didn't. I traded for that LED. Thank you.
I get it. I think Savine's Reclamation may be better. You just consider it.
Yeah, it's sitting. It's literally sitting on my playmat at home. Like it's like the deck is there, and then Savine's Reclamation is sitting right there, just staring me in the face.
I would say it's probably a top 5 white card. So I don't know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's great. It's undervalued currently.
You're
at
playing.
the moment.
I think probably the other top 4 white cards. So might be worth a consideration.
Maybe the consideration's worth it. Well,
Sweet. Well, any other packages we're talking about, Evan? You got your stacks package. I will say one thing: Smothering Tithe is in this deck, and because sometimes you just mid range, like we were talking. And
Yeah.
Smothering Tithe plus Zacama is just an absolute mid range nightmare sometimes.
well, there's just been times where it's like it comes out on turn 1. Like there is the potential for that with this deck. So it comes out on turn 1 or turn 2, and then you're sitting there, and at that point, no one has enough mana, or they're not willing to denote that amount of mana to like slowing you down, and it just opens up like if you're able to get that Smothering Tithe out, there's Red LE Blast and there's Power Blast in here, so you're actually potentially opening up ways for me to interact or
Getting that interaction after you tap out.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
exactly, yeah.
I vibe with that.
Yeah, also, if you have that mana early, what this deck wants to do, this deck wants to win, but you kind of lose time interacting with your opponent. So if you don't need to interact and waste turns doing that, the deck can just win. So that extra mana is super important to you.
Yep. Yeah. Sitting on that, it's just like, I'm not like getting those treasures don't contribute to me like untapping, but they do contribute to like the value of the rest of the cards. They allow me to like just push the strategy into like, I don't know, just shoot off the ground, just like launch
before
into
your
space.
opponents have a chance to interact.
Yeah, exactly. So I do love this deck. This is like a deck that I've won a surprising number of games with. So it's something that I guess when we talk about like efficiency and refining decks, that you ultimately have to cut away the fun cards, like things that don't necessarily contribute to a super refined game plan or win condition. And the last cut is Zacama. Like the last cut, because there's a clear front runner for a better commander, and it's Rocco. So I tried it. Like it just wasn't the deck that I wanted to
It's
build.
not your style.
Yeah, it wasn't my style.
Zacama's
So
your boy.
it's like I really want this deck to work. I'm willing to put in the work to make it work.
Well, there's 2 things that work there. People play better when they play the cards that they like. So
Yeah.
you're going to play this deck better with Zacama as the commander than you will as Rocco. Just purely you are more invested in making it work.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is it's unexpected. So your opponents would know how to play against Rocco. Even if they figure out a little bit of the game plan here against Zacama, they don't know what you're actually going to do. They don't have a good guess to like what 99% of that 99 is.
Also, your timing. They don't know when you're going to try and go up.
Yep.
Because, I think Rocco does suffer a little bit from the stick fingers effect, where people are counting your mana the whole time, where you're like, oh, if he untaps with 5 mana, then he just wins the game. So we got to make sure he doesn't do that. And it's pretty easy to tell if you're about to do that. So, if instead you're casting Zacama, or you have, all these different abilities and different cards that, let you kind of eke out an advantage into the mid game, then it's really hard to know when you start interacting.
Yeah, it really does have a lot of hard pieces to interact with, because the land package is my win condition. So everyone's playing, non-land permanent removal or whatever, bouncing things like that.
Heliod's indestructible.
Yeah, indestructible. So it's like these interaction, I guess what I'm trying to create is a room, an amount of room where it's hard to interact. With this, the win conditions are just unconventional enough where you don't know where to stick your fingers and you don't know where to stop it. And honestly, you're probably just going to want to stop it at the food chain point. And because if I generate infinite mana, it's like, okay, I just drew my whole library. That's ultimately what the deck does.
Just one fun thing I just realized is if you're going off with infinite mana with the food chain, you filter everything with Zacama and you can activate, and you have Heliod, but you don't have Ballista, you can just activate Zacama to gain life infinitely, putting +1/+1 counters every time on a creature.
Yeah.
You've already destroyed everybody else's creatures, so you just start one-shotting the table.
Yep. Yeah. You can make Zacama infinitely big
That's
with
so
Heliod.
fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
Now this deck, if you guys want to check out the list, it is on Moxfield.
Yeah, we'll link that down below.
Yeah, we'll put that in the description below. It's called Zacama Top of the Food Chain for a reason. I think that it's one of the more unexpected food chain outlets because it doesn't necessarily say that it wins the game with food chain on the card, but
No. I mean, it took us a long time to figure out the fact that it even did do that.
yeah, it was just like, I can't even tell you the amount of people that took a look at this deck list when I was building it the first time going to Marchesa, and not a single person mentioned food chain. And now that we've seen it, it is infinitely better.
Oh, I think still a lot of people are not going to be expecting food chain out the gate with this.
Yeah, I mean, what that one game we played on the Play to Win server, as soon as I cast a Wheel of Fortune, I discarded my hand. The whole server just kind of went, can I see your list? Because those cards that you discarded make me pretty curious about what the hell's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the deck is unique in its own right, and that's ultimately what I'm like going to hang my hat on at the end of the day. Is like make this the best it can be. Hopefully, I win some games. Hopefully, the win percentage is decent enough for me to continue playing it. And if not, I will be very patient and I'll be waiting for more cards to help this
There it is.
help make
Yeah.
it stronger.
Yeah, and I will say, even if it's not there yet, if it's not, to its final tuned, like, God mode, like, deck list, every time I sit down at the table against this, I know I'm in for some bullshit, and I know that you're a threat the whole time.
Yeah.
And the other part of that, too, is not just that you're a threat. A lot of the times we'll be sitting there in the game, and another player becomes the threat, and people look at this deck to be like, well, can you interact? Can you stop this other person from winning, and we'll deal with you later. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of power there already.
It does happen a lot where people will be trading blows and they just don't expect this to like come out on top, or they don't expect like what's going to happen the next turn. So that is definitely one of the things, like flying under the radar. We've seen a lot of decks just sit at the top table lately because they're running strategies that are either old, or you don't quite know where to interact, or you don't quite see what's going to happen until it's too late. And that's kind of the idea here too.
Mm-hmm. I think Zacama has a certain inevitability too. Like, worst case scenario, if you just get into the mid game, there's a chance you just cast Zacama, and then people have to deal with that.
People are
Yeah,
gonna like force a will it. People are gonna like do everything they
Yeah.
can just to make that like not make sure it doesn't hit the board, because when it untaps, like the idea behind it is that you spent 9 mana to get it. You're gonna have 9 mana in return when it hits the battlefield.
Yep, and then you just untap and blast some stuff and buy yourself another turn, and then you start blasting more
Start
stuff.
buying more
and-
turns.
And then it's just, that's it. Sometimes it just grinds you out of the mid game if you're like stacked up anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can play better if you don't feel like you need to win right this second.
Mhm.
Like if you
Yep.
know you're going to win eventually, as long as no one else wins first.
Yeah.
you can just play the game and do what you have to do in the moment.
100%. I've seen you win turn 2 or turn 10. Like this deck
Yep.
just kind of keeps, like I said, it's inevitable. It feels inevitable sometimes.
It definitely has the like it doesn't feel like it ever runs out of gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is always either very explosive or it just constantly churns.
Awesome, dude. Well, you got any other notes you want to throw out here? I mean, I know you could talk for endless hours, but we do have to get home soon.
Yeah, not really. I'm pretty gassed out on it. I do like. Yeah, all I gotta say is I absolutely love this deck.
It's an awesome deck. I love
Yeah.
looking at it. I love kind of seeing the progress. Like I've been playing my deck for a long time at this point. You've been playing your deck for a long time at this point.
Yeah.
But they look polar opposite or completely different from when we started.
It's funny that this is the one that I've like stuck to. I'm so excited, like when this is finished, to start looking at like other options. Everything that I've learned from building this deck and how I've developed as a player and evolved as a player and seen different strategies. What is the next deck? Like that's kind of actually what I'm looking at now, is like I'm starting to get excited for brewing, because now I have a different perspective. And I took this deck and like with everyone's help, with everyone that has like contributed to this, found a way to make it my own. And now I'm excited to do that with another commander. It may just be just as unconventional as Zacama. Like I really want to make Jod the Oracle of Arcavios.
Yeah, let's go.
So it's like crazy shit like that. So that's ultimately what I've learned from this deck. It just made me a better player in my own way.
Love that. Yeah. Well, stay tuned for some tournament results. Evan's going to be taking us to a tournament in 2 weeks. I'm going to be right there with him.
Posting like a 7-0 record with this.
I love to see it. Let's do it. Stay tuned, guys. Thanks for tuning into the MoxStars podcast. We got all of our socials linked down below. Hit that link tree, like and subscribe, follow us. We got a podcast coming out every Friday, and we got some new stuff in the works. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Peace out.